So welcome to this new video. Today I want to show you how to play with the pawns, and I picked one game from Liren. Actually, he's, I think right now in the FIDE list, the number 2 in the world, or number 3, the third with more elo. Well, and in this game, he played this game many years ago. He was 2400, but he was playing against another Chinese player with 2700, so he was already pretty strong. So in this position, Liren plays c4, and as you can notice, white has 4 pawns in the center. The only problem can be that his king is still in the center, but his position is okay. And actually, when he plays c4, he has a very interesting idea to play e5 later. Let's say his opponent wants to finish his development on the queen side, and he makes a move like b6. Why b6? Because if you play bishop d7 directly, you can always lose the pawn on b7. I'm not saying that white is gonna take on b7 immediately, but you can lose that pawn. So let's say he plays b6, so he can free the bishop to play b7, a6, or even d7. Well, now Liren can make e5, and as you can notice, white has an amazing center here with c4, d5, e5, and f4. And this gives white an enormous space advantage that is very easy to convert at this level. Well, with that being said, he plays e4, e5 is coming, so black needs to react to e5 by making e5. The problem with this move is that temporarily the bishop on g7 gets closed by the pawn on e5, but the idea itself it's pretty interesting, because it doesn't only secure e5, but also it provokes a pawn break in a king side. So in this position, when your opponent is trying to make a pawn break, there are three, or when you're trying to provoke a pawn break to open lines or to avoid any type of threat, there are 3 possible outcomes that you should expect and calculate. Okay, what if your opponent capture? What if your opponent ignores the capture? And what if your opponent allows you to capture his pawn? Okay, so for example, if Liren reacts this way, pawn takes. Well, now bishop takes, and for you this position is not gonna be very good, because you need to castle, and in case you castle here, bishop takes on h2 and you start to lose material. Not only that, but the black squares are pretty weak, so this is not good for white. Let's say that here you castle first, and because you need to castle, and your opponent, but this scenario is basically like allowing black to capture the pawn on f4. So if white allows black to capture, then same stuff happens. I would say that queen takes, for example, or maybe, yeah, queen takes, for example, bishop takes and bishop d4. This could be a nice or an interesting idea for black. Or also after queen f4, bishop e5 as well. And same idea, similar idea, right? Controlling the dark squares. I would say this position should be fine for black. But also, I would say it could be equal as well. But I kind of prefer black's position. But here, in this position, the other scenario is, what if your opponent ignores this trade? And here, Liren found the move f5, which I think is the most important move during this game, because this altered the whole structure, the whole pawn structure. Now, f5, this move implies a sacrifice, because f5 is a square that is defended by 2 pieces, the bishop on c8 and the pawn on g6. So Liren knows that if he plays f5, he's gonna lose the pawn, but he understands the compensation of that, because after this and this, now he can castle, and by castling he's gaining a tempo because the bishop is attacked by the rook, and bishop d6. So we need to stop here to evaluate this position, right? I always tell my students to learn how to evaluate positions before you continue. So in terms of material, black is better, but material is not the only element that allows you to know who has the advantage. It's just one of the elements, but it's not the most important most of the time. So yes, black has an extra pawn, but here white has the control of the space here. For example, d5 is giving white a lot of space. That's the reason why the queen needs to stay on d6 for a little bit to avoid any type of moves like d6 or d7 in the future. And you will see how this d5 pawn, which is a passed pawn by the way, is the element that will give white the winning chances in the future. In terms of activity, in terms of king safety is another important element when it comes to evaluate the position. It knows who's better. Black lost the pawn lost the g pawn, and this is going to be another important element, another important factor in the future, because with this element we can start an attack on the g file. Okay, for example, moves like rook g3 can come at any moment. But this idea won't work if the bishop on g6 remains on g6 forever. So if somehow we can push away the bishop from g6, then black's going to have a lot of problems on the g file because there's no pawn on the g file. That's how you start to create a plan. There is no like a secret art of doing this. You observe what elements play in your favor and you try to amplify the advantage that you already have. But if you don't take your time to know what's going on, then you won't be able to find a plan in chess, and you won't be able to find the right move, okay? The exact move that you need. So, in this position, Nihua played bishop g6, and another thing that is pretty interesting when it comes to create a plan is that you always have to pay attention to the most important ideas or moves for your opponent. Because here, you can feel tempted to take on b7. Actually, the pawn on b7 is free to take. You can do rook b7, and I contemplated this idea, but the reason why I think Dean Liren didn't go this way is because now his opponent can play e4. And why is e4 important? Because when you play e4, then the bishop can play actively on e5 or even on d4, okay? And yes, he can do that. Actually, here you can play bishop b2 to try to trade bishops, but the thing is that okay, you trade bishops, but then it's like black has his passed pawn on e4, and I would say the position should be equal, or yeah, preferable for white, but still, there's no need to like you can always delay the e4 move. Okay. With that being said, here Dean Liren play h4. This move is interesting because when you play h4, first of all, you're delaying e4. Okay, black can always play e4, but if black plays e4, now h5, and the bishop is lost. So you're delaying that. Not only that, but if you can play h5 successfully, then the bishop is gonna get removed from g6. For example, let's say black plays something like b6. Okay, now h5. Now, when you're removing the bishop from g6, let's say bishop b4, then the g file is open for your pieces. Now you can play rook g3, and this attack is going to be very nasty to defend. It's going to be very difficult to defend this for black. So h5 is coming. That's why Nihua here play h5 to prevent this move. But then queen g5, and again, now you're targeting the h5 pawn. And as you can see, Dean Liren is following a plan, but the plan always adapts to the move of your opponent, right? You never know exactly what's going to be the next move of your opponent, but you can expect what could be the next move, okay? That's why it's important to create a plan. And now, after queen g5, basically after queen g5, h5 is lost. Here, Nihua play e4, and then Dean Liren simply took. Then he brought the last piece, rook to e8, bishop e2, and again h5 is a move that is coming. Very interesting, right? Because, you know, sometimes people are like, feel tempted to just capture and to release all the tension. It's like, oh, let me capture here. Right, but what's the point of doing this? No point. So I always tell my students, if you're contemplating the trading of if you want to trade a piece, and you are calculating that idea, at the end of that trade, ask yourself, are you getting anything from that, objectively speaking? If not, maintain the tension, because after bishop e2, the bishop on g6 sucks. The bishop is not very active. okay? And you can always play h5, and now you're putting him in a problem. h5 is coming. So for that reason, black played queen e7, so he can release a little bit of the tension by trading the queens, and then h5 still come. Bishop h7, and now the g file is open, so rook g3. Now you are making the threat of checkmating 1, queen g7, but what's the problem? The problem is black can simply take. Now, still, black is still in problem because in in a lot of problems here, because you know white's pieces coordination on the king side is everything here. Bishop f6 can come at any time, right? Let's say you play b6, so bishop f6 and white is winning. The bishop on g7 is pinned. So the bishop is not very good. It has a it's useful to defend the king, but it's not very useful to attack. And white is dominating a lot of squares. So here, for that reason, black played bishop d4, and then Liren play a very interesting move, which is king h2. Now, it looks like this is a blunder because now black can play bishop e5, and the rook is pinned. But Dean Liren was expecting this. He played bishop f6 check, bishop takes, king takes, and the thing is that black cannot do anything here. White has a lot of compensation for the material he's sacrificing. So if you have ever wondered how some players can sacrifice some material, it's because they understand the type of compensation they have. First of all, take a look at the activity. I would say the activity is the most important fundamental in chess, and one of the most important elements when it comes to know who's better and to make a good assessment on the position. Well, actually the rooks don't have open files, okay? The black rooks don't have open files. Not only that, but the rook on e8 has to pay attention to two ideas. First of all, the rook needs to protect e4. I know that the bishop is doing this, but eventually if you want to advance this, let's say pawn e3, the rook needs to protect the pawn. And not only that, but the rook on e8 needs to protect this idea. Oops, d6, d7, d8. And it's very easy to execute an idea like this. So here black play e3. Okay, rook f4, preparing the checkmate. Bishop c2. And now if you play rook g4, he can always make king h7, rook g7, king h6. So in some position, if you have an interesting attack but you cannot see the end result, and you cannot see clearly the end position, and you don't know if you're gonna win or not, hold your chances. Don't kill them immediately. Just improve your position. King f3. When you play king f3, you add pressure on e3, and then you are provoking. Well, you are preparing this advance. King here, g4, king g8, g5, and you see black cannot do anything. So that's why black is playing king h7, king g8. Here he plays a6. Now black tries to do something on the queen side, and then h6. And after bishop g6, it looks like everything is covered. Okay, it looks like everything is fine for black. But not really, because here there's a very interesting sacrifice. I recommend you to pause the video and try to find the forced way to win this. Okay, I hope that you pause the video. Here the right move is pawn h7, sacrificing the pawn, because after this capture, rook h4, and this is when black resigned, because you cannot prevent bishop d3. And if white can play bishop d3, bishop takes, and rook h8, it's checkmate. But the problem is that you cannot prevent bishop d3. It doesn't matter what you do here. Let's say you play b5, bishop d3. Same stuff. Bishop here, rook h8, and that's a checkmate. I would say the only way to prevent this is by making a move like rook e6. But you can take, and now the king can go here. But what's the point of doing that, right? This is so bad. So bad. This is winning for white. Well, I hope that you enjoyed this video. And again, what are the main lessons from this video? Remember that every time your opponent makes a pawn break like this, remember that you always have three choices, okay? Three options: capturing, ignoring it, and allowing it, okay? So you should calculate all these three scenarios and play and go for the scenario that where you feel like you have more chances. And don't be afraid of sacrificing pawns in case if you're gonna have compensation for the material. In this case, Dean Liren sacrificed a pawn, but the problem is that the king is gonna be more exposed now, and also you gain a tempo. But now, of course, you have to deal with the pawn on g6 and that's the bishop on g6, and based on that, you create a plan to amplify the advantage you have. So that's why h4 is so good in this position, because it allows you to, you know, break the defense for black. Okay? So if you understand this, you will improve your level for sure. If you like this video, please let me know in the comments, and see you in the next editions.